Yeah, check it out. Check it out.
Locked in.
Yeah, check it. Hot damn black America again. Think of Sandra Bland as I'm staring in the wind. The color of my skin, they comparing it to sin. The darker it gets, the less fair it has been. The hate made, I inherited from them. But I ain't gonna point the finger. We got anointed singers like Nina, Marvin, Billy, Stevie. Need to hear them songs sometimes to believe me. Who freed me? Lincoln a Cadillac, drinking a battle raps. Or is it Godspeed that we travel at? Endangered in our own habitats. Them guns and dope, man. Y'all can have it back. As a matter of fact, we them lab rats you built the projects for. Now you want your hood back. I guess if you could rap, you would express it too. That PTSD, we need professionals. You know what pressure do. It makes the pipes bust. From schools to prison, y'all, they trying to pipe us. To your political parties invite us. Instead of making voting laws to spite us. You know, we from a family of fighters. Fought in your wars and our wars. You put a nigga in Star Wars. Maybe you need two. And then maybe then we'll believe you. See black people in the future. We wasn't shipped here to rob and shoot ya. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal, including black Americans. Yeah, that's black America again. I'm gonna do another verse for me. Check it out. From the same thing. Check it out. Keep that beat roll. Yo, we go here. We go. Here we go again. Trayvon will never get to be an older man. Black children, they childhood stole from them. Robbed of our names and our language. Stole again. Who stole the soul from black folk? Same man that stole the land from cheap black smoke and made the whip crackle on our back slow. Made us go through the back door and raffle black bodies on the slave blocks. Now we slave to the blocks, cause on them we spray shots. Leaving our own to lay in a box. Black mother stomach staying or not. We kill each other more than the cops. I wish the hating would stop. We are at war and a battle with us. I know that black lives matter. Do they matter to us? These are the things we gotta discuss. The new plantation, mass incarceration. Instead of educate, they rather convict the kids. As dirty as the water in Flint the system is. Is it a felony? Or a misdemeanor? Maria Sharapova making more than Serena. It took Viola Davis to say this. The roles of the help and the gangsters is really all they gave us. We need Avas, Ta-Nehisi's, and Cory Bookers. The salt of the earth to get us off of sugar and greasy foods. I don't believe the news or radio stereotypes. We refuse. Brainwashed in the cycle to spin. We write our own story, Black America again.
Oh.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another live broadcast. And as my brother just said, who stole the soul from black folk? The same man who stole the land from Chief Black Smoke made the whip crack on our black slow. What up, real black gentlemen? Florida used to be the whole Gulf Coast up to Mississippi. Do you think a lot of black folks fled in that direction instead of north? Like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people went north, a lot of people went south. It depended on this time because, at the first, before they went north, they went south, So yeah, a lot of people definitely went south to areas like Florida until, Andrew Jackson and them. So, yeah, and then there's a time where they kind of just went north. But yeah, so let me say I appreciate all of y'all for watching and coming through. And I appreciate y'all for watching and supporting the Black History lessons, you know what I'm saying? I'm not, trying to cut nobody off or nothing like that, but it's just the time that I have to do it, and I think that I need to do it, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, the only time that I can do it because it does take a lot of work to put in there. So I appreciate it. And, so if y'all have any more questions, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate the question from Real Black Gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? You can feel free to ask, you know what I'm saying? I don't plan on being on here long, so I guess I'll just go through it. And y'all let me know if y'all want to come on here. I'll put the link in. But, the question will be about one of the subjects that we have. It'll be multiple subjects that we have looked at or talked about in this particular session, you know what I'm saying? So I'll show a couple of things from that because I do want to get y'all opinions if y'all have an opinion on it. If not, then I'll just show it and I'll get out of here. But like I said, if y'all want to come on here, let me know. But this is going to be about this topic or any of these topics and within, you know what I'm saying, this for this one, you know what I'm saying, because I ain't got all day anyway. All right, so I'll start with the stuff that I was talking about. What's going on, Raw? Shouts out to Raw in the building. And I was talking about on the premiere on the video. One thing that we touched on was the 3/5 clause, you know what I'm saying? Because I know that we had a discussion last time about, you know, whether black people are citizens, and we just happened to be on the part, well, they making their constitution, you know, and Raw, you know, put the right answer, like, yeah, ratified it. They wrote it in 1787 and ratified in 1788, right? And it's interesting because the actual thing didn't mention the word slave, right? And it didn't actually talk about, but it did have a couple of clauses that referred to you know what I'm saying? And one of them was this. So they got this thing called the 3/5 Clause Awareness Day. You know what I'm saying? They did this a couple of years ago, but.
Councilmember Andy King held his second annual 3/5 Clause Awareness Day at the National Black Theater. He and his staff used the day to educate the community on the part of the Constitution which declares African Americans as 3/5 of a person. Although said to be nullified by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, Keene is declaring the removal of the clause from the Constitution.
When I did research, the same system that said I was 3/5 of a human being never said I was equal in any of those amendments. And as you know, even though the Civil War came and they decide not to enforce it, doesn't mean that the law doesn't go away.
A panel was put together to shed light on the issue. The granddaughter of civil rights activist Percy Sutton was a part of the conversation.
I grew up in a political family where I've come to understand that we all live within a paradigm, and that paradigm is set by laws. And this particular law is this, as well as the 13th Amendment, are particularly egregious.
Many people may not realize it's still on the books, so to speak. And it is definitely important because when you think about it, it brings a sense of pride for people to have it off and for people to know that it's on there. A lot of people may be very upset that that kind of language still exists in our Constitution.
Don Blatch Muhammad teaches no one leader can rise above the condition of its people. So I'm not here to support Councilman King as an individual. I'm here to support the community and the constituents he represents that will be there long after he's gone. When term limits are gone and somebody else has to come in, we still got to tackle and deal with the issues of the people where freedom, justice, and equality is concerned.
Now, first of all, like, I ain't even trying to get in on that real quick, but I am gonna mention something about Christians too, but like later, because I've talked about the Great Awakening. But yo, this, like, they are part of a whole organization, and he's sitting here talking about the constituents and all of this stuff. Man, I don't understand this, man. Right, you know, and people don't understand, right? There's only one way to determine the actual law in the real world. There's a reason why we are even here to this day, right? Like, there's no way around, like, literally just prisoners of war. You got to find a way to get up out of that, you know what I'm saying? So they talking about, you know, just be aware. And we just happen to be on that part with the history lesson. So, you know, I'm not just making that up, you know what I'm saying, when I be saying stuff like the citizen thing, because, like, you know, the more that we go into it, the more that we gonna learn. I ain't have time to pull up the other thing that I was talking about, but I will with the slaughterhouse cases. But, you know, I guess this is a part of it because, you know, the 3/5 compromise clause or whatever, you know, and it's not the only thing that was in the Constitution. You know, they also said that the federal government, right, could not control what the state actually does, you know what I'm saying? But oh yeah, nah, Shanique, it's all good. Yeah, I'm not even, you know, I'm all good. But, you know, they you know, they show us over and over like that's what it means and what they're saying. And so let me play this one, right? Because this kind of goes
Find
into
a better
some of the
business
stuff that
anytime at BB.
this kind of goes into some of the stuff that we were saying too, though, you know, or that we will talk about. Because listen to like this lady who's asking a question, and listen to this lady answer, right? Because she's going to definitely give an answer that, you know, some people will come in here and try to give the same kind of answer. I'll just leave it at that.
Was calling in from Santa Monica, California. Good afternoon, April.
Hi. First,
Okay, definitely, Buwana, definitely.
I'd like to say that I agree with the professor that we are all one human race. That is why I actually would like us to stop even using the term racism and referring to things as racially different and racially constructed, because we are all one race, and that's human. That said, this country that we live in, that is going through what it's going through, was indeed founded on the myth of white supremacy, and I don't understand how teaching that is teaching hate. It's just teaching the truth. I'm married to a white man. I love my white brothers and sisters, and I want us all to do.
You hear that, Ross? She loves her white husband and her white brothers and sisters, and she wants us all to whatever she was
better. And that is why I think it's important that the myth of white supremacy be looked at in full sunlight, and that we acknowledge the fact that within those documents, these founding documents, the Constitution, black people were told, said to be 3/5 of human. All of the wonderful things that came out of the Constitution, the amendments to the Constitution, not the original Constitution, the amendments, these are all things that had to be fought for. And I dare say that no one thinks that women who fought for years for the right to vote hated men. They just also wanted to be at the table with the men.
Right.
They did not.
Right. Let me tell you something. First, I appreciate your call, but that 3/5 clause of the Constitution, you really need to look that up, because that is a false narrative. When the Constitution was ratified, it had nothing to do with black people being considered 3/5 of a human being. It had to do with representation in Congress, and it was the non-slaveholding northern states that fought for the compromise, because during that time, each
No, and they leaving it out, right? What was the compromise, right? Well, they wanted representation because, like, on one hand, they did not want to be taxed for the South. They did not want to be taxed. So they were saying, well, they're not humans, you know, they're no different from like cattle. Like cattle can't pay taxes. But on the other hand, when it came to like representation, they like, yo, we still have these, you know, they're people now, you know what I'm saying? Where when it comes to like having people in representation. And so the North is like, no, like let's stop playing around. Like, you know what I'm saying? We all agree that they're not like fully human, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's where they come up with this 3/5 compromise, because they like, well, I understand you still want more representation, but if you don't want to pay the taxes for it, then you know what I'm saying, and they're saying that for every 5 black people, that would equal to 3 white people, you know what I'm saying? So like 5 of you, like if it would take 5 people, black people doing labor, right? And that would equal to 1 white person's labor, right? So that's what it means, you know what I'm saying? Your worth is like, it takes like 1.6 of you to equal 1 white person, right? Yeah, she definitely got a dog in the race and definitely assimilated. But, you know, they often leave that part out, what they were actually debating about. And the good old North was like, no, let's stop playing. We know they're not, you know, people. And we know we need their labor. But they just wanted to tax them on either them getting slaves. They wanted slave, because as you see, like slaves was the one thing that was not taxed. And that's what a lot of the founding people was arguing about, right? Because they was not taxed based off, you know, they was like, well, these is just chattel, so we can't count them as people. Like the argument is like whether we are, I mean,
northern states that fought for the compromise, because during that time, each
And by the way, like I said, if any of y'all want to come on and ask any questions, or if you want to add something or say something, or I'm wrong about something, just put it in the chat and I'll put the link in the chat and y'all can come on.
Each state was awarded a representative per 30,000 persons. And in the South, they had 600,000 slaves. They were pushing to count their slaves as population. The North would not allow them to do that, to count them as whole people, because it would have given them more representatives.
They would not allow them to count them as whole people. Like, how could you not count whole people as whole people if that's not what you're talking about, right? Obviously, they're not a whole person.
In Congress. And so it was a battle over how many representatives they were going to get in Congress. So the people that actually pushed for the 3/5 clause, they were the abolitionists. And so that's something that you can look up. Even Wikipedia gets that one right. And so that bothers me. Like, I was taught, just like you heard it, and I heard educated people, some of them with law degrees, repeating what is a false narrative and a lie that is easily refuted by just going to the research. And so,
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, and she did kind of leave some stuff out, but not that that's relevant or not is their constitution, you know what I'm saying? And this is one of the times you was mentioned. And I bring that, and they also do this kind of like, and I say, this is me saying this, you know, with prisoners, you know how they ship certain prisoners to certain states, that increases the population. And so the electoral vote. So once that state, you know what I'm saying, votes, you know what I'm saying, maybe you can call that a conspiracy, but like, you know, if you send certain prisoners to somewhere like Ohio, their electoral votes increase, but those people do not get representation. And I think that's somewhat similar, but that's just me saying this, you know what I'm saying? So right. And the whole issue was, the whole time was, the North was like, yo, y'all making a lot of money, you know what I'm saying? And this is before the cotton gin. So this gets worse from here. That's what I'm saying. Like, the laws get worse, the treatment gets worse, because after the cotton gin, like, I think I'm gonna get to that one, the next one. But this is the pre-cotton gin, and they're just talking about, you know, gradual emancipation and really trying to make it a white nationalist nation, but they know that they cannot do that on the grounds of, you know, just doing it on their own will, you know what I'm saying? They need the slave labor, all right? But how do you justify that, you know what I'm saying, being the good old Christians that they were, but acting like they wasn't real people? So, all right, I'll go to the next thing. All right. So this sister put up a kind of good one. I'm going to try to skip through some of it. This was about Prince Hall. Now, I was talking about, and I forgot to mention, and I'm going to mention Prince Hall later on too, but I was talking about like how when Black people saw their Constitution, especially in Boston, they like, yo, what's up? Yeah, all men is created equal. Oh yeah, that's what's up. You know what I'm saying? And I guess we still trying to argue like, oh yeah, we're included in that all men is created equal, but we're not. I mean, I don't even understand the time when Obama became president, like, because that's what they would say, you know. I don't know the time. What, 1965? Is that when we became humans and citizens? Y'all still got on I am a man shirt to this day. And you sitting here talking about you a citizen. All right.
Welcome to Black Gems Unearthed. My name is Jazz, and I'm studying Black history of Massachusetts.
Exactly, bro. Like, the North was capitalizing off that. They like, but slaves wasn't actually being taxed. That's the only thing that wasn't being taxed. And they like, yo, either the money you making off this is going to be taxed, or you're going to be taxed when you buying and selling them. And you're going to have to pay that into the federal, you know what I'm saying, fund for the rest of us, because, you know, that's how, and the South was ready to succeed before the Union was even formed in the first place, right? The Civil War just got pushed off, like however many years it got pushed off. but they was ready not to sign up. That's why I showed in the thing that dude Charles Pickney or whatever he said, or whatever his name was, another slave owner who signed the Constitution, who said, yeah, we never had in mind that Negroes could be citizens, and we don't think that it could ever be possible, right? And this was their founding father, right? And this is their words, and you cannot go against the Constitution. You can only interpret it, right? But this is what the writers said of it. You know what I'm saying? That this is their laws that y'all go by. So, but anyway, you know, he was like, yo, the South is gonna succeed if you don't start paying, if you start making them pay all these taxes. But anyway, so Prince Hall, man.
Today I'm going to share the legacy of Prince Hall, a prolific Black activist of the 1700s. He was the founder of Black Freemasonry, a fraternal order that goes by the name of Prince Hall Freemasonry.
And I got a question for y'all, right? And maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm starting to get it right. Say I create something and I do something like in like an organization, and I create something, and then I can open up different like parts of my you know what I'm saying, whatever I'm doing, my business, or not to call it a business, but different chapters of my organization in different places. And we have our own rules and like regulations. Would that make me like, is that what people be saying is like the demonic thing? Like, or is that like what maybe Freemasons is something different? But like, if you just opening up different chapters and you helping your community, is that like something like that's devilish? Like, so if I did that, would people then say like, yo, I'm a Freemason and I'm like, you know, this and that? So I'm curious because I might be wrong, but that's what it sounded like when I the more I look at it.
Masonry today. He was a patriot in the American Revolution, and he was an abolitionist that fought tirelessly to change and improve the conditions for Black people in the new forming country. He was a pretty big deal, and more people need to be talking about him. So that is why I'm going to share his story and his activism.
I'm gonna skip some of it because she did a good
paintings
job.
Of Prince.
So you should like watch her channel. She did a good job. I don't really want to skip some because she did a good job. So
Hall that are interpretations, since there are no known photographs of him. We would see a replica room of the lodge meeting space that he held back in the 1700s, and we would see portraits of some of the distinguished men who have served the fraternal order. So I learned all of this on the Prince Hall Grand Lodge web, which lodges are like chapters, and there's over 300,000 members too that are all affiliated with this mother lodge here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. So let me tell you a bit more about Prince Hall's early life, and then we're going to go on a journey to what I gathered. He was born in either 1735 or 1738, and he was enslaved to William Hall, a leather worker in Boston. April 9th, 1770, he received manumission papers from William Hall that allowed him to be free of any type of servitude. Now let's go and look at a site in Boston that really influenced the trajectory of Prince Hall's life. Just a month.
Yeah, facts, Raw. Facts. That's what I'm saying. Like that. So, but I know there'll be people. Oh yeah, like well, they got different. Like they'll call it like lodges and all of this stuff. You know, I can call it whatever I want to call it, but they'll just be spooked out. But like I said, she did a good job saying a lot of the details. I hate that I'm skipping this.
And tariffs that Britain continued to place on the colonists. Crispus Attucks, or Attucks, I've heard it pronounced a couple of different ways. He had successfully fled from slavery in Framingham and was working in the Boston area, and he was the first person shot dead in the scuffle. This did not sit well with Prince Hall because Crispus was a Black and a Wampanoag man, and he died over the struggle with the colonists who wanted freedom from the rule of Britain when he himself, Crispus, didn't even own his own freedom. This was not right.
We still do that to this day. Like, oh, we still like, yeah, we thank you for your service, y'all. You know, even though you don't got your own to this day.
Equals. Nobody was listening to this no-name Black man. So Prince realized that the Freemasons, they wielded the power in the colony. People listened to them. They were influential. Men like John Hancock, Paul Revere. So he decided to try and become a Mason himself. He asked the first lodge, the Freemasonry that was here in the colony, if he could join. And they said, ha, yeah, right. No way they're going to let a black man join their Freemasonry. Discrimination was very real then. So Prince decided, let me try asking the British Army Lodge instead. Perhaps they would let him become a Mason since they were connected with the Grand Lodge of Ireland. And that's where he had a bit more luck. March 6, 1775, Prince Hall and 14 additional black men were sworn in to the British Army Lodge 441 to become Freemasons. They were sworn in right here at Castle Island. And so before John Bat fled from the city, he did provide the men with a permit so they poured forth many, many petitions to change life for black people.
All right, so he was a Mason. I don't know what it is, though. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be honest with you, but like listen to some of the things that he did.
And they could bury their dead in the traditional Freemason form. Prince Hall and the Masons worked very hard to change conditions for black people in Massachusetts and in the country. They poured forth many, many petitions to change life for black people. I came across 6 in particular. The first one was a petition from January of 1777, where Prince Hall petitioned the Massachusetts state legislature to free all enslaved black people. He based his argument on natural rights, as was described in the Declaration of Independence. It would be a few more years before Massachusetts would abolish slavery in 1783, but they ended up abolishing it because they found that slavery was inconsistent with the state's Declaration of Rights that stated that all men were free and equal. So very similar to the argument that Prince Hall was making in 1777. The second petition I came across was Prince Hall petitioning George.
And this is what I was telling you when they would start petitioning, once they start seeing they, Constitution and all this stuff, and this was the people who was doing the petitioning. So this is why I'm showing this.
Washington to let black people fight in the Revolutionary War. He petitioned George Washington to let black folks fight and have their freedom after they fought for this new nation. Washington did not agree until the British began recruiting black folks from the colonies to their side of the war. A third petition that historians believe Prince Hall was involved with was Belinda Sutton's petition for reparations from her 50 years of working for the royal family in Medford and Antigua. I shared more about that in my
petition for reparations. I think that's something.
Last video, so I highly recommend going to watch that if you have not yet.
What up, Black Maggots?
A fourth petition I saw that Prince Hall worked on was repatriation back to Africa. In 1787, I believe, he put forth a petition asking that the state of Massachusetts help black people to relocate back to Africa because the conditions were so poor in the state and there was so much injustice, it would just be better to go back to Africa where there's plenty of resources. I found this interesting because this petition predates the American Colonization Society that was formed to send black people back to Africa, even though black people at this point were like, we don't want to go back to Africa. We built this nation.
Now you see that? Y'all? They was having that same argument in 1787 that we having today. Ain't that something? He was saying, well, like so much injustice, we got to go back to Africa there. And then some black people, oh, we built this country, and it's not even a country yet, but we fought in the Revolutionary War. We're in the process of building this country. You know what I'm saying? Same argument in 1780s and 90s that we have today. That's crazy.
So Prince Hall did actually petition to go back to Africa before there was a society that was focused on doing so. A fifth petition that Prince Hall was involved with was to end the slave trade and to stop the kidnapping of free black people. It was hard enough to...
Oh yeah, and this was the thing, and this is what I'm gonna get into with the fugitive slave clause. Like, they was kidnapping so many black children. Some places had to pass a law, like, you know what I'm saying? But not that they enforced the law, but so many black children was kidnapped and just sold into slavery. And then, of course, if you don't Like, well, it doesn't matter what you like. It doesn't matter their rules. They do whatever they want. That's the part we don't understand. But yeah. So this brother, I guess, wanted to do something about that.
To be Black in this new country, just surviving under the regular injustices of work, life, socializing, and so forth. But free Black people were also being kidnapped and sold into slavery. In particular, there was a case where there were Black men by the Boston Harbor, and they were lured onto a ship and they were sold into slavery in the West Indies. So Prince Hall and the Masons put forth a petition to the state and demanded that slave trading and the kidnapping of Black people end. And fortunately, 1788, the state did actually abolish the slave trade and the kidnapping of Africans. Now, the sixth
That's a whole nother subject, y'all.
petition had to do with education. Prince Hall found education very important and wanted to ensure that Black children could get an education. And so let's journey to another location, and I'll tell you a bit more about that.
Now, I talked about the Free African School,
Prince
right?
Hall petition
in New York. That was a part of it, and that was in 1790s and 1789, something like that.
As the Massachusetts state legislator in 1787 to provide education for African American children. I'm outside of the African American Meeting House that was a location for kids to have a school, African American kids, but I'll get to that in a moment. So 1787, Prince Hall petitions the Mass state legislator, and they pay him no mind. They do not provide him with the schooling that he's asking.
Like, that's crazy. Like, yeah, in 2023, Forecast petitioned the Virginia legislator, and they pay him no mind. They just saying, like, that's crazy.
For African American children. This leads them in 1796 to petition directly the school board to try and get schooling for African American children. And they too did not pay him any mind. So he takes matters into his own hands and establishes a small school in his home. And eventually that school moves into the home of Primus, who was his son. And eventually from there, the school that was in Primus's home here in Beacon Hill moves to the African Meeting House behind me in 1808. So Prince Hall also really believed in the importance of education and fought for it.
Right, that's what's up. They built the school in 1808. So they started it in their apartments in the 1700s, and by 1808 they had a meeting place where they can hold school for Black children. And still free Black children, right? Because let's not forget that these places still enforce slavery, right? Even though it was the North.
Prince Hall was a civil rights hero of the new country. He had a vision for freedom and equality that he fought tirelessly for. And now he rests here in Copp's Hill Burial Ground in North Boston. Every year, the Prince Hall Masons on Memorial Day come here and they celebrate his life.
Well, I know there's a lot more, y'all will probably have a lot more say than me about Prince Hall. Y'all probably have heard a lot more debates and all of that stuff than me about Prince Hall. Yeah, facts, Raw, and Shanique, nothing new. Yeah, I see only one group of people petitioning to stay attached to their own people. Yeah. And that's the thing, Bwana. He stopped writing them letters once he realized they wasn't going to do nothing, and he did what he had to do. You know what I'm saying? So, that's the things that we can learn right now, like within a couple of years by 1808. I don't know if y'all know what was going on in 1808. Literally slavery legalized, and they was able to build a Black school. So, and we have people doing the same thing, like trying to build schools, and it may be in somebody's house because they can't afford a building. You know what I'm saying? But, when maybe we don't have an excuse, but we don't support it. So, that's why we're in the situations that we're in. All right. So the next thing that I think was important, right? The DMV area, you know what I'm saying? And the free Black population in the first census was in 1790, right? And I showed y'all the numbers. I don't remember the numbers exactly right now, but most of the free Black population lived in the DMV area. So I'm gonna show y'all a little bit of that, you know what I'm saying?
In Fredericksburg, 10 of that city's oldest African-American families submitted DNA for research to learn more about their roots in this country.
There are a lot of people to thank for this day.
They gathered on a stage at the local high school. Representatives of families.
And listen, I play this, y'all. Just a lot of this stuff y'all debate about, but I don't, you know.
Families with deep roots in Virginia suddenly learning about how truly deep they run all the way to other continents.
This idea was to uplift and empower the people who were so separated, dislocated from the past. You are a descendant of her daughter's daughter's daughter.
Paula Royster sharing the results of her genealogy research in a project called Reclaiming Our Time.
Yours goes back to Egypt.
Walk like an Egyptian. Okay. Nefertiti, right?
Others learned they had relatives who fought in the Revolutionary War. Another lived in Cincinnati, where they helped enslaved people get to freedom along the Ohio River. Thomas Duckenfield has been digging into his family's history for years.
The more and more they discover about DNA, you can find your deep roots, where all of us converge.
Among the findings, his enslaved ancestors in Essex County, Virginia, were freed by Dr. Moore Fauntleroy in the early 1800s, long before emancipation. But as Royster and Duckenfield discussed her latest findings, someone in the audience took special notice.
Well, he mentioned the Fauntleroys, and immediately that name rang bells.
Caitlin Bennett has also done her ancestry homework. She is a Fauntleroy descendant. She and Duckenfield meeting on stage afterwards.
You know, I used to own you, boy. How about that?
Making that connection for the first time.
Our people have not, shaken hands for...
Now, my question for y'all is, right, is he entitled to... I'm not even going to say it, right? I'll say something else, because this is not what I was gonna say. But I seen an episode of a show, right, when they was like, yo, if you find your direct people who owned your people, you know what I'm saying, and then they were suing them on the show, you know what I'm saying, and then like white people started being like, yeah, I'm not white, I'm Peruvian, you know what I'm saying, and it started scaring all the white people, and then they find out, hey, damn, like, yeah, that's my grand. Hey, damn, I used to own these N-words. And then on the show, they was getting sued for it, though. But I wasn't going to say get sued.
I don't know, 200 years or so. So it was a pleasure, a delight, to see her today.
We share
And they're still in the same area, too, by the way.
family history. Yes. We share family story.
Yes.
And it's, I think, very exciting.
But you represent the beginning.
But that was not the only striking discovery. Royster telling 89-year-old William Knoll his DNA is so ancient it can be traced back tens of thousands of years.
I think this will...
And that's crazy because some people think, well, European history starts 6,000 years ago. This brother predates Europeans, right? According to, some creationists.
Years.
I think this will sort of change the feeling that people will have about themselves.
Royster's goal, to awaken more people to the value of genealogical research and the connections it can forge.
The idea is to become a human family.
In Fredericksburg, Virginia.
How the hell that get thrown in there at the end to become a human family? Yeah, I learned that you own my grandma. You know what I'm saying? No, let's welcome to the human. What? I learned that you own my grandma's smack. You know what I'm saying? But so this is also important. What used to go on out there, what Black people used to do, because I know we like to not think that we used to sit around and do nothing and look crazy, but this is like a lot of stuff that the free Black people did back then too, though. You know what I'm saying? That lived in these areas, because if you ever been around here, then especially like if you go to like Virginia Beach from a certain way, you got to go through the tunnel. If you ever been through the tunnel, then you know what I'm talking about. But that whole area,
The idyllic waters of the Chesapeake Bay. They looked exactly like this in the 1600s. That's when the first African Americans saw this bountiful body of water. And as we open the book of the bay's history, their contributions leap off the pages. Watermen and boat builders, cooks and oyster harvesters. Turning the page to the present day, it's the Shirley B-3, the head boat of the old. His son, 63-year-old Captain Lamont Wright, is the next chapter, and he's
now.
I don't like when they be playing this music.
No blacks hardly involved in it. So my goal is to make this a living legacy for the black watermen and the black captains of the Chesapeake.
The black watermen of the Chesapeake Bay has the same kind of impact as a Tuskegee Airman. They have the same kind of impact as a Buffalo Soldier, but their story is just beginning to be told.
And that story continues with the third generation of the family you're meeting in this story.
I was 5 years old. I started on my grandfather Montrell Wright's boat.
27-year-old Cedric Cooper says it's his grandfather's work ethic that's driven him to his destiny.
This is something that I feel that I have no other choice but to get into because he's worked too hard.
I want my son to go ahead and take over and enjoy and have a good way of life.
Yeah, it's not wrong for him to want his son to do that. And if his son wanted to do that, you know, pass the business down to his son. I'm gonna be honest, it didn't look like he was enthusiastic about it. You know what I'm saying? It's a shame because this might be an extinct thing pretty soon. But at a point, this is how a lot of black people earned their money. You know, this is how a lot of black people ate, especially the ones that was in these communities in the late 1700s, early 1800s. You know what I'm saying? And I know we like to think of like only like Europeans and out there, but like no, most of it was like black people. Like the sister mentioned, like one of the things they try to teach at these free black schools is like astronomy, and she didn't understand why, because it had something to do with them, you know, being sailors, but that's because they used the stars to like navigate or whatever. So they taught that to a lot of young black children, and they often use them as navigators, and especially if they did it for themselves, you know what I'm saying? They made a great living doing it, but obviously this is extinct, and probably we're gonna have to probably need somebody doing this too. Let's be real, you know what I'm saying? I probably won't do it, but you know.
Somebody don't step up and do something right now, it's over.
It's definitely over.
200-year-long line of watermen, and it skipped a few generations and came back to me. I was really moved by the conversations of diversity and inclusion in marine sciences. All the boat captains are over the age of 60, and so right there, that is a generation that is just slowly fading away with no real younger people coming up behind them.
Yo, in like 20 years, we're not gonna have nobody on the waters at all. You know what I'm saying? So like most of them in their 60s, really probably like 5 years, because how long can they do it? And it don't look like the younger generation want to take up that anymore.
To me, it's alarming, and so that's why, you know, I think that minorities and aquaculture came at a perfect time.
And
all right, because they about to start getting into some love everybody stuff. So yeah, let me
Chugging away from Kent Island, we joined deckhand Joey Ryans.
It may get a little choppy, but it won't be too bad.
Our captain, James Lynch, better known as Captain Buck, guides us. The boat picking up speed as we head south into Prospect Bay.
This is Parsons Island, and this is called the Seed Area.
5 days a week during peak season, Captain Buck makes this journey along the bay to what's called Seed Area or Oyster Ground. Stopping his boat and opening up his dredge to harvest bay oysters. Sorting through each bunch, they pick ones big enough to take, filling bushels to sell at market.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna do this. So
it's history.
We join more of those watermen back at the docks.
Ever since then, it's history.
They estimate the average age among them ranges between 50 to 60 years old and growing older. The eldest, 82-year-old Captain Montrell Wright.
The whole area down here done changed. One thing about the water back then, you know, we went from one to the other, you know.
Yeah, this is a bad joke, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This is how Bakari would be like talking about HBCUs. You know what I'm saying? I don't mean that. I shouldn't even said that, but
you go from crabbing to oyster to clam and like that. Now you just limited what you can do.
They're black farmers with ancestors known for tilling Bay Bottom, no longer slaves, but as free men since the 1800s. a time where economic and social mobility possible with a life on the water, despite limited access and legacy wealth compared to white watermen. Today, mindset has changed. Boats are costly, upwards of tens of thousands in equipment and licenses.
See, he only got a few.
With more state and federal restriction and less bounty in the Bay, many often find different work or go to college.
And the watermen say COVID has also put a strain on business. Between markets shutting down and restaurants closing, it's another wave of hardship, especially for these Black watermen.
See, if they had the opportunity I had to go out with someone, say a friend or family member, to pass it on. Because if it wasn't for my dad, I don't know if I'd be here or not.
60-year-old Daryl Roy Sr. says mentorship and tradition are reasons he sails on. It's a livelihood, he says, that is both grueling as it is fulfilling.
It's just something about the water. It got into my blood at a young age, and there's nowhere I'd rather be actually in what I'm doing now.
It was a few small ones in there.
Back with Captain Buck, work today is done. And like his peers, Captain Buck remains hopeful for a change of course.
If a young person, just like if they wanted to be a pilot, if they would come out here and give it a shot, I believe they'd catch on just like that. I really do.
Hopeful young generations will revive the spirit of work on the water.
Why would I want to do anything else? That's the question. Why would I want to do anything else?
And the legacy of Black watermen on the Chesapeake Bay. Near Kent Island, Amy Lou, WBAL.
Yeah, Shanique, that was a bad joke. I'm sorry, because like this is sad stuff, you know what I'm saying? I know this is a field that we also gonna need too. Like, pretty sure we're gonna need to eat fish and stuff, you know what I'm saying? And need I'm pretty sure we need water, you know what I'm saying, man. I'm not gonna lie, I probably won't do this, you know what I'm saying? And I couldn't tell somebody to do it if I won't do it, but this is what a lot of our early free Black people was out there doing to make a living and to eat and to, you know what I'm saying? And it's probably gonna be gone in a couple more years, I'm gonna be honest with you. Okay, so I go to the next thing, right? And I'm gonna put the link in the chat because there's a couple things I'm pretty sure y'all gonna have something to say. So let me know if y'all want to come on here, and I will put the link in the chat. If not, I'm gonna keep going so I don't be on here. Now, I did mention, right, because I know that a lot of people think when we think about the Underground Railroad, we think about like Harriet Tubman, and that happened like the 1840s, but it was actually started in like 1789 or something like that. And I think it has something to do with like how the gradual emancipation in certain northern states. And so when they tried to escape, especially after the Revolutionary War, they either went to Florida or they went, to the north. But and we often think that most of the abolitionists was these white nationalists, right? Who didn't give a damn about Black people. And a lot of people on these Underground Railroad, a lot of the people on that, worked and hid people and fed people were other Black people. And this is one example of the first African Baptist church, that protected people and gave them shelter, either whether they was going to Florida or whether they was going to the north, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes that was the first stop. Sometimes it might be the last, but.
This is First African Baptist Church.
Yeah, this and farming, because I think the same issue is going on with farmers, it's a dying off thing, And doing stuff like that, it's a lot different from working as a nurse in somebody's house, you know what I'm saying? I get why we stopped doing that, but I know that we're going to need somebody on the water. We're going to need somebody farming land. We're going to need people in certain positions, So hopefully somebody get inspired to do it.
This is First African Baptist Church, the oldest Black church in North America. The building built by slaves. The gentleman that laid the first brick laid the last. The balcony.
They built the church while they were slaves, you know what I'm saying? And we have struggling to build anything right now.
Laid the last. The balcony hold pews that actually were built by slaves. They have the oldest information in this building. That information is written in cursive Hebrew writing. Downstairs, the air holes that the people, when they hid beneath the floors, they were able to use are actually African prayer symbols. This building was built during the night hours. It was also not only used as a place of worship, but it was used.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna start it over, and I'm not gonna say nothing. All right.
The building built by slaves. The gentleman that laid the first brick laid the last. The balcony hold pews that actually were built by slaves. They have the oldest information in this building. That information is written in cursive Hebrew writing. Downstairs, the air holes that the people, when they hid beneath the floors, they were able to use are actually African prayer symbols. This building was built during the night hours. It was also not only used as a place of worship, but it was used as a place to help out on the Underground Railroad. One of the greatest missions I believe ever taken out and carried through was handled beneath the floors of First African Baptist Church. There are many items in here that now stands as proof of the Underground Railroad. In the ceiling of the church is a code that this building is used as a safe place, and that code is 9-patch. 9-patch is a quilt symbol that was used during the Underground.
Now, you remember I did a video a while ago. He was trying to debunk rows of damn Harriet Tubman. And he was like, oh, yeah, they use quilts and stuff. That's not true. But you see, they built it into a building here. Like, they use symbols. They use symbols and built it into a church building, right? You know, that let them know that this was a safe place for you. They built it with slaves and free people, you know what I'm saying? And in South Carolina, they did what they had to do no matter what it was in a time, like throughout the whole time, you know? So, like, you know, there you go. Hey, I know Shanique wanted to go in. I'm going to put the link in for you, Shanique. All right, here you go. I already knew Shanique was going to want to go in when I played that one. But, you know, like I said, man, they designed the buildings in a time where, you know, they used it to spread messages because they knew that, yo, what up, Koku? Yeah, shouts out to Bwana. Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. Yo, Bwana be showing support to everybody. You know what I'm saying? You got to show nothing but love for Bwana. But they built these buildings, you know what I'm saying? And with the intention that, like, you know, they showed messages and all of this stuff. No, we already know, Bwana. You be showing love to everybody, man. You love everybody, my brother. And you know what I'm saying? That's a good thing, though. No, well, it's like none of that matters, you know. Yo, what up, Everett? Yo, I understand what you're saying, my brother, but you know, the point is, you know, the issue is we don't do this anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I don't care what kind of symbol. Like, I think that you should have like places that you know that is okay, where you know, like, number one, you're gonna need them if something gets super crazy. You know what I'm saying? And like, if the world go the way that people try to say that it's gonna go, you're gonna need safe places. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that the church doesn't operate the same way, and we can build organizations. And the point is, we built these kind of organizations before, you know what I'm saying? And there's no reason why we can't do it. Like, yo, we literally have the blueprint. We just making excuses at this point, because if they could do it at that point, then, yo, what reason that we can't do it now, you know? Yo, what up, Oni? What up, Everett? All right, so I keep going to she come on.
Railroad to identify safe places. So that 9-patch was placed right in the ceiling of the First African Baptist Church in plain view. If you're interested in getting a tour of this church, you're welcome to come to.
And I do think that, you know what I'm saying, our history is important because obviously we repeating the same things over and over and we thinking that it's something new. Like we repeating the same cycles, right? So all right, so and this is why another thing, you know, because we know that right now there's a lot of Black Christians out there and a lot of Black people. It's definitely spooked out. I'm not gonna lie. And I also mentioned the second Great Awakening that really started in really like the 1890s, you know, and you know, the whole Black Christian thing, because I think that this is another thing that kind of keeps us handicapped, but they also used it for their own benefit at the time, you know, and maybe we can learn a lesson or two about using our spirituality as a weapon or whatever. If we're gonna be spooked out, we might as well use it as a weapon because we don't face anything different than they face. In fact, they did it in harsher conditions with less resources. So, you know, what excuse do we have, you know? All right. So let me play this, right?
So at what point do we see slave owners begin to have their enslaved Africans join them in church services? They're separate, but yet still there. What was that?
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Some of that never happened. And I think that's important to say because, you know, we tend to think of the movies as showing us what plantations really look like. And that's actually the anomaly. It's not the norm. We're talking about people who may be owned by a family and they're slaves and there's one family and that family is not going to church very much, or they have to go away to go to church. They may be in a rural area. So I want to set that up first of all. I think the ways in which we can think about that are two things. And one is a pretty big event and what we call an American tradition, religious tradition, the Second Great Awakening, which happens in Kentucky in the late 1700s.
You say what? You got ripped off. Yeah, I don't know if you meant that one.
Place called Cane Ridge, where there's a great revival that breaks out. And I'm kind of getting ahead of the story, but I want to tell this as a way to sort of think about how this proliferation of Christianity comes from enslaved Africans. This revival that happens, you know, through the Methodists and circuit riders and all of this, begins to have services that are out in the open, in the fields and in the woods, that people can worship together and have ecstatic experiences of religion.
You don't see the link? Okay. Hold on. Maybe I didn't put it in there. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know how many allies that we have, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. You have to show me the allies, you know, my brother. All right, let me keep going. Build America up? No, I don't know about building America up. But this part here is about the Second Great Awakening and the Black Christians, you know what I'm saying? I just showed and I was showing the Underground Railroad. I know that we like to champion a lot of white abolitionists and like a lot of the poor, but no, like a lot of them was not down. There was like a lot of white nationalists, and most of the Black abolitionists were the ones that started. The Underground Railroad actually started in like 1789. You know, the network itself, you know, started building up around this time. So, you know, and that's something that I mentioned in the video. So that's why I'm showing this. But they also had the Second Great Awakening, where a lot of Black people turned into Christians around this time too.
We call an American tradition, religious tradition, the Second Great Awakening, which happens in Kentucky in the late 1700s, a place called Cane Ridge.
Yeah, what's going on, Shanique?
Oh, hey, Forecast. I'm good. As usual, you have brought up the topics that need to be discussed, and you bring out all the receipts. But we got to look at the receipts, right? And I think the fact that you brought out this here, where they're talking about this Great Awakening, is so interesting because I feel like that Great Awakening of church was just the inception of integration. It was, okay, how can we get these people who, in my opinion, they already knew we were the people of that book that they were hijacking. How can we get them on board with being further enslaved, whether mentally, physically, or both, for the rest of their lives? And that was it. Churchianity, Christianity. That's how they did it. So now you got these people who are already so connected to spirituality, who want to be connected to God or anything that seems like God. They were already following the white man like he was God. So now they're like, okay, we can lead them. This is it. And here we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all you wanted to say?
Sort of, kind of, because I mean, I recognize that not everybody realizes that we're the people, but this would not have worked with them and church if those individuals who were Black and who were just coming from slavery and who were still in it didn't already still have a remembrance of themselves as to who they were and why they were in that position. If we weren't disobedient, we would never have been in slavery. But when we were, so kind, we were punished. That's my understanding. So now, after realizing that, they're trying to get back, but not doing that thing, because the scripture says, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and seek my face and repent, then he would hear them. But they didn't do that. They just went to the bamboozlement of another group of people, the ones who had enslaved them, and now they're following them, because all we all need to do is go to Jesus. At least that's what they believe. And so they follow them straight back to slavery. And here we are again, where you got people marrying everybody and doing everything, and we're all kumbaya, but it's not kumbaya when you see things happening. When we see crime being perpetrated against us, it's never that good book way of handling things, at least not when it applies to us. Because I know that individuals will realize that they have a sense of justice when it's their own people. But when it comes to us, it's real murky, it's real muddy, the waters. So we just have to realize that if you're going to say you want to drink the Kool-Aid of Christianity or biblical Kool-Aid, actually go to the book. Don't go to the church. Don't go to someone else. Go to the book and then go to God. Pray to him. I mean, no one wants to believe that you need to actually talk to him and that he will find a way to communicate with you. But you also need to do your research. We all want to be lazy about whether we believe. We just want to believe in something. And so for the longest, the white man was the thing to believe in, and they believed it. And they'll keep doing that. They'll keep rehashing the thing that leads people to follow them instead of having their freedom. And there's not going to be any freedom if we keep following people. Simple as that. They never wanted to give it up, and they still don't.
All right. And I'll say this, this is, I'm not going to take it to a religious thing, because I'm not into that, what I'm saying, myself. But I would say this, at the time, right? And this is why I think that the church at the time, they used it as a revolutionary thing. It wasn't just a church, a place of work. It was a school. It was a place where they helped other Black people escape. It was a place where they helped feed other people, you know what I'm saying? And they use these as tools. And that's something that simply, like, if we can't understand the lessons that we can learn from that, like, regardless of what anybody else does, because I don't think that nobody's coming to, like, I'm talking about other people, other groups of people, anybody else is coming to say, I don't think we have no friends. You know what I'm saying? I think we are the only ones that's going to be able to do the things that we have to do. I don't think, what I would say is, I don't agree that I would be like, we're being punished, because I would say that then there's nothing you could really do but hope that you whatever. But like, I think the power is in our hands, you know what I'm saying? But let me ask you this next part, because this, like, while I'm playing it, because this lady is about to say, like, kind of how, like, the Bible and stuff was like kind of and just the enslavement through the church, and how a lot of Black people kind of got, like, the Bible and, like, Christianity through, like, the church or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, like, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think that book is, it's funny. I think the best movie that ever depicted just the power that is in the Bible would be the Book of Eli. The whole movie is about people trying to get the power that book wields. I mean, you can say that, the Bible doesn't matter and God doesn't matter, but it's been used so powerfully to control so many for so long. So there's power in it. The issue is you can have a scalpel, and you can use a scalpel to create and make wonderful surgery, or you can use one. So the question is how you're using the tool. I feel like it's been misused, been hijacked. And so people are doing that. And now we feel as though, oh, that must be the problem. No, the problem is that we are not returning to what it is that we knew. When she mentioned that Hebrew lettering in that church, they knew. I mean, otherwise, I don't understand how you can explain it, because it definitely wasn't the slave masters going to teach us Hebrew. They weren't going to educate us in that regard. They definitely didn't want us to learn anything. I think that we did learn something from the fact that they were feeding one another, that they were helping each other, that it was a safe haven, because the Panthers were doing the same thing. I think the problem is we keep going to our oppressors, expecting them to have consciences, expecting them to do the right thing, expecting them to feel sympathy or sorry or guilty for their injustices that they continue to perpetrate against us. And that's just something that needs to be given up. We need to, yes, I believe you. We do need to look to ourselves, but we need to look to who we are. And I believe we are the children of Israel. So we need to look to our God. Everybody's got a God. The Buddhists don't deny their God. No one else denies that they have a God. So unless you believe we evolved, which I do not, you have to know that we have a God. So all of these people have hijacked our belief in this God and said that it's them. Okay, so how about we take that belief in our God, go just to the book and not to all of these churches, which all lead back to the same one false religion from Babylon, or the same three churches between Seventh-day Adventist, Presbyterian, Catholic. It's all Catholicism in some new fashion. If we actually did the research, we could see that aspect of it. But separate religion out of it, separate God. We need to just realize that we are a people and we have a creator, and that we're not going to get any freedom from our oppressors.
All right. And so I'm gonna play just a little bit more. Yeah, because and I know she hopped on for this part, so I'm gonna play a little bit more because I got another interesting part too, Shanique, that I know y'all got an opinion about. And by the way,
Okay.
I figured that's why I didn't even say nothing. I was like, I didn't know what to say, because I was like, I know you got ripped off. I'm talking about you got ripped off. I know you would have went in on whatchamacallit. That's why I'm like, I was like, but yo, so I'm gonna play a little bit more to see if you get triggered or not, right? All right.
There's a great revival that breaks out, and I'm kind of getting ahead of the story, but I want to tell this as a way to sort of think about how this proliferation of Christianity comes from enslaved Africans. This revival that happens, through the Methodists and circuit riders and all of this, begins to have services that are out in the open, in the fields and in the woods, that people can worship together and have ecstatic experiences of religion together. And so a lot of times when we have these stories about people worshiping together, it's worshiping together, but not in the ways you might think. It's obviously, blacks aren't seated together with whites, they're seated at the back of the church. It's actually a part of the narrative beginning story of the AME Church, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I think it's important also for us to understand that many slave owners really didn't care that this people that they owned knew about Christianity in the first place. And so I think that's another piece of this that is really crucial to the story, is that we have the tendency to think that everything is suffused with religion. In reality, it is, but it isn't, because sometimes it's not
right of enslaved Africans taking on this Christianity religion that they didn't necessarily come here with. Why was that the case? How did they latch on? They were introduced and then they began to adopt that into the livelihood of who they were. What was that like?
I think the way you want to think about that is a couple of things. Is that one is it's not quite. It's an adaptation that happens in a variety of ways. Sometimes that happens because you have somebody who shares it with you. Other times that happens because of certain kinds of events. And so if we're thinking about, I want to use the name of a church here, Emmanuel at AME, which was a church long before AME. But if you think about it that way, there are places where enslaved are actually able to worship and that they are able to go, but that is within certain kinds of parameters. So if that's a big church in the South, you have Black members of Black Baptist Church of churches beforehand in the early 1700s and the First Great Awakening period, what we call it in American religious history. Part of that has to do with, does somebody introduce it to them? Again, it's really important to remember that reading is not a part of this. It is more about storytelling and orality, and as a way in which to transmit the ideas about Christianity. So we have to kind of lose that idea of the textual piece that we always sort of think about in terms of that. I also think it's important to say, as a scholar, and I know this will be hard for some of the Christians to understand, but that the Christianity doesn't necessarily sometimes fit what we think about as Christianity, that Christianity might be suffused with other kinds of practices, like what you might say hoodoo or healing practices or things like that. It is mixed in with African practices that get passed on, healing kinds of practices from mother to daughter or within the enslaved families. So there's a variety of ways I think that Christianity enters in. I think what's important to also think about are the ways in which Christianity is used to keep the enslaved, with promises of, heaven and the by and by, and that once you die, you'll be free, and all of these kinds of things that people are told. And that is a deep part of the story as well. This probably is a good place to bring up one person that I'm thinking about right now. There was a huge battle on Twitter about this. She wouldn't have been invited to all these churches because she was enslaved. And even though she was a Christian in the pure sense of the word, about how she talked about America's perspective.
So I'm gonna stop it right there, Shanique. You want to say something about this?
You know what? I was sitting here trying to keep myself contained because, yeah, I do. The funny thing is, if you think about some of the things that she said, it's of course true, but it's like there's a playbook to how you get people bamboozled. All right, you take something that they already have, they could tell, okay? Because first off, our enslavers did not come here with a Christian value. This country is not built on, this Christian thing. I don't know what that is. That's some adaptation. They were not people who wholeheartedly believed that Jesus or Yeshua was out there doing the things that he did and they should follow his good direction. Because if they had, they would never have done what they did, right? They wouldn't have done it in the manner they did. People always bring up that slavery existed before that. Yes, not in the manner that it was. So this heinous cruelty that was inflicted upon us was done by people who were godless. Now they can go on and say that they believed in God. They believe in something, but I'm not going to go into all the different things, but she touched on it because when you say there's voodoo, that came about because those slaves who were in different places were then forced to have Catholicism because here was Christianity, there was Catholicism. But you know what they did? They just mixed and morphed it into something that they remembered from where they came from. And now it's still acceptable because now you can do it. But if you remember this movie, I don't know if you showed a clip a long time ago about Nat Turner. He's reading the Bible to them and he's going into the verses. And there are so many verses that do not speak of lay down and let your oppressor kill you. It speaks about those who brought into captivity will go into captivity. They don't give you that one in the slave Bible. They don't tell you that you're going to dash babies. They don't tell you these things because those things are not the type of things that keep people subjugated in the mind and keep them docile spiritually. The docility that they want, if that's even a word, I'm getting excited, but the things that they want us to have were only there for the purpose of keeping us enslaved, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. And if you get someone's soul, then the body has to go where the soul is. Your spirit is not going to jump out and do something other than what you tell yourself. If they had a spirit of fear and a spirit of submission, thinking that, oh, this is what we have to do, but that is not what the apocryphal books talk about. That is not what those scriptures, the Old Testament and the New Testament, speak to various things that speak of revolt. And they weren't pushing that. Christ himself spoke about the Gentiles being dogs. Every time I go or hear someone at church speak about, oh, it's not good to give the things from the table to the dogs. He told a woman she was a dog. So obviously he did not see her as he saw himself and the rest of the people that he came to, because he only came to the lost tribe of Israel, right? So those sheep. So I'm just trying to understand why it is that we so easily drink the Kool-Aid of all of these false religious ideas. Religion, Christianity, all of that is just a morphing of what the book is for Israel. The book is for Hebrews. That's all it was for. So they just hijacked it and used it. And now it's, oh, this is how we keep you captivated to do what we want. Because, oh, Christ is about love. I don't remember when he talks about being dipped in blood, his robe, that he's going to come back in love. It's a lot of convoluted things where people want to take control of that powerful book and get your mind captivated. And so then we follow. I don't think we need to be seeking any extreme inclusion. I don't think we need to be thinking that, oh, they're really going to help us, that one day they'll see and we should vote and all of these things because then we'll get the power. I mean, you could do it, but we've been doing it. And here we are. That's all.
All right, so I'll do this, and if she's up for it, if any of y'all want to say something to that part, I'm I definitely respect what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? So if she's up for it, and y'all got a question or anything like that, I'm gonna not ask a question. I'm gonna move on because I think it's something else that y'all will also find interesting. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so. The link is in the chat if somebody want to come on, but we'll keep moving forward, right? So we're going to skip this one. I was going to talk about the African Free School that was in New York and the people that could, made it, and those good old abolitionists, right? So, but let's go to this one, right? So I also mentioned this thing called the Brown Fellowship Society, right? Which was a group of mulattoes, right, in the 1790s, right, who distinguished themselves from Black people, who was made sure to distinguish themselves from Black people. It was like, did you know that Charleston, South Carolina, there was a society of free Blacks who had white fathers, you know what I'm saying? And they made sure to separate themselves as a mixed class. They said, I'm not Black, I'm brown, you know what I'm saying? And that's literally was you know what I'm saying, what they were saying, that the Brown Fellowship Society was one of these groups. So I'm not gonna play this because this is a whole interview talking about it. But what I will do is play one of these videos, and I played the other one in the video I did, so I'll play this part. If it works, anyway. All right, hold on. Let me.
Or salient points.
All right, hold on, my bad. Let me get this strong.
Why you do that? Can I say this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Truth be told, I'm not even mad at those mulattoes or the Bible calls them strange children. Okay. I'm not even mad at them for separating themselves. I think that's where we went wrong, because if we recognize that we are Israel, then we recognize that we are supposed to be separate. We're not supposed to marry non-Israel. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying you walk around and you can just be hateful and wicked and evil, because the scripture talks about not being wicked to people just in general. He said we were in Egypt, right? So we're not supposed to just treat people like garbage, but we don't think that we're the same and that we should be involved intimately. We just shouldn't. So the fact that they're the product of something different, they recognize that they were now a different thing. So we just won't recognize that. You can go to most, and I've run into a lot of people myself that I've spoken to who are biracial, and they will tell you, oh, I'm not accepted in any group. And sometimes they're accepted by white people, and sometimes they're accepted by some Black people. But generally, their issue is not being accepted by either group. Well, that's because they recognize, the other group, that they're not all either of the things. So they have an allegiance. But the problem is, we have to recognize that we have to have a side. There's no such thing as a halfway crook. There's no such thing as a halfway person. You're going to have an allegiance. So when it all comes down to gravy and people are deciding on things that they want to side with politically or socially, it's going to be with a particular group. There's no way to divide it. You see this happen all the time when we have alphabet people have issues. They will, oh, I'm Black and I'm an alphabet, or I'm white and I'm an alphabet, but they choose their decision. They're usually of that sexual orientation before they're Black. That's just how it works. So people need to recognize that this whole idea that, oh, you know, well, they're biracial and they're both. No, they're not. No, you're gonna choose.
All right. And so okay, so there's some questions in the chat. So Bawana, I know that Shanika is down with Black people, and you know what I'm saying, I already know that. So like, but you could come on definitely, Bawana. But yeah, I would think that, you know what I'm saying, she down with Black people, like, you know, like she cool with Bakari. Bakari is a Hamite, you know. And so you got ripped off. He said he got 2 questions. He said, what edition of the Bible should Black people read? And the second question was, since the Zionists stole the identity of the Jews, why aren't the Israelites taking up the fight to regain their identity from the original thieves?
First question. I read the King James, but I also read all kinds of them of translations. So the whole book, and cross-reference all of it, because it's like you have a book in Spanish. If you get it translated, you want to be able to know what it's saying in every inflection. If someone's going to translate it into English, if someone's going to translate it into French, but you want to know what the book says. If the book was originally in Spanish, you want to go to Spanish and get that full impact. So I don't know Hebrew, but I know that it's been translated in various different languages or various different translations. So I go by all of them and look at them and cross-reference and do the research so that I can get the full power of what the book is saying. That's what I do. I'm sure other people do what they're going to do. But on top of that, you want to take into account that if there's anything that I recognize, we didn't always know. We still debating whether we are the people. People are still like, oh, we're not the people. I mean, you can go onto various YouTube channels and see people still arguing to this day. They ain't got to argue with me because I know who I am. So they can believe it or not. But the bottom line is, if you know that people don't even know that they're the people, then what they're going to mount? They're going to mount a battle. They got to first find out who they are. Then they can decide, okay, we're waiting on what the word says, or we're going to do something. There's lots of different people out there, various camps of which I don't agree with all their practices, but they're doing something. They're trying to educate people. And things have to happen with an inception, a start. You have to get the spark. You got to get the idea. You got to recognize, and then you have to move forward from there. So does it mean that we just take up arms? I mean, I don't know about that, but I do know that it has to have some direction that comes, and the Father gives direction, and people have had that direction. If you look in that book, you know, there's been the book of Maccabees. There's been people who've done things physically because the Father has told them, but there's also the fact that people change their lives. How about we stop, I don't know, intermarrying? How about we stop letting our oppressors educate us? How about we stop eating things that the Father told us not to? How about we stop in small things? How about we start educating our own children? Like, there's so many things. That same book from the beginning to the end talks about us having to do. How about we repent from the wickedness? We're out here doing all kinds of filthy things that are not of the book. And we think, oh, it's my right to do it. But meanwhile, the Most High says, no, it's not. It's not your right. We got a whole bunch of problems within our own group that we're worried about whether women or over men. No, that's not the position. We're worried about whether we should wear a dress or a skirt. If the men are wearing women's clothing, all kinds of things are going on that are amiss. It's in the book. We can go to the book and address it. And on a small level, one person, one family, one group, one block at a time. And then it goes from there. But I don't think we go and say, oh, we're going to start fighting the Zionists. I don't know how that would happen. But if men stood up, maybe they could come up with something. But our men have to stand up. They have to also subject themselves to the Most High. They have to repent. They have to decide that they're going to do what the Father says.
All right. So Amani Mangu, what's going on, my brother Bawana?
What's going on, Full Gas? I was trying to talk to my brother about Full Gas. I was talking to my brother Bagari. I was just sitting in the chat, and I like Shanique and Everett. They my favorite YouTube couple, you know, because Shanique is hilarious. You know, she's just hilarious to me. But I have a question for a serious question though. A couple if I can ask her a few questions, if she don't mind.
Have at it.
Yeah, they're religious questions, Shanique, so don't get offended. You know.
If I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, then I'll tell you I don't know.
Okay, good. So my first question is, why did I think y'all calling it Most High? Why did the Most High like choose only one book to for us to use? Like, I would think that the Most High, considering the fact that we come from different places and different areas, and and I was sent to all other parts of the world, why would He only use one book, which is like the King James Bible, and why would He just use like the English version for us to understand, to like move as a people?
I don't think it's about him using one book so much as you have adulteration through all of the books. The translation, the pen of the scribes have done their task in adulterating the majority of the book, but it's through inspiration that you are able to get the truth of it. So you have to do research, you have to pray, you have to ask the Father to give you clarity, and you do have to read. You can probably get information through not the King James version, but I'm just thinking that it is one book because that book was addressed to his people. This book is like a letter to your children. Everyone else is using it, but it's not for them. It was never for everyone. The Buddhists have their book. The Hindu have their book. With the Bhagavad Gita, they have their book. Every other groups have their books, and that's because they were worshiping other gods, plural. We are the only group worship one God, monotheistic belief. That's us. But we're just now waking up that that's us, because yes, people did come in, as the scripture also said, and painted themselves in the book and made it seem as though it's them. And the funny thing is, people can debate that and be all excited about it, but at the end of this whole story, the truth comes out and they will say that they have been sold lies. They have been told lies. So it's up to us to do the research and find out. But people let all kinds of things come into play, their egos, their nationalism, their tribe, all of these things come into play as to whether they should actually consider that maybe they didn't have it all figured out and maybe they're possibly been misled. I did. I used to be in a cult. I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. That's a full-on cult. But I had to humble myself and recognize that I didn't have it all figured out and actually go to the book and not with some preconceived ideas. And listen, when scriptures say certain things, you can be listening to someone tell you, oh, this scripture means this, or you can look at the scripture and go, okay, I'm not going to leave my brain on the shelf right now. I'm going to listen to the scripture and then think about it and then pray about it if I don't get it.
All right. So Shanique, I'm gonna let Bwana keep going real quick, and then kind of like like with the answers. I don't want to make it like too long, But
I got you. I can be verbose. I'm sorry. I'll try to trim it.
No, you're good. You're good. So I wanted to ask. Raw wanted to ask, what does the word version? What does the word version? What is the definition of version and allegory?
Version.
Like version of the like Bible, which version, and like allegory, what is the definition of allegory?
Well, like an allegory is more of a picture, a kind of a visual way of implying something. That's just me roughly getting to you. I'm sure we can look it up, but that's my understanding. But version, as in like a thing, like what's your version of the story, your take on it, or virgin like a woman, or like virgin like
no, like what version of like the Bible do you like read? Like what does like version mean?
Oh, well, I read the King James, but I read more than just the King James. I actually read both the Old and New Testament and the apocryphal books. That's books that have been removed by the Catholic Church because they determined it wasn't canonical, which I'm not Catholic, so the canon don't matter to me. I know that the inspired books, all of the books that speak about what my people went through and what I should be doing and how I should be changing, I read it. And I have more than just one version. I have the NIV, I have the KJV, I've got the Oxford annotated. Like I have a few. I have the Blue Letter Bible. Like I have a few different Bibles because I'm trying. You're supposed to study to show yourself approved. I'm trying to study for that purpose.
That's excellent. That's an excellent statement. So, because you may have answered my other question, because it seemed like a lot of emphasis, right, is going to that one book. So my next question would have been, you say that we should do our research, right? Research is important. So obviously the interpretation, there's interpretations within that book that may not necessarily be in that book. So when you say that we should do our research, you try your best to find out where the best interpretation of what is written in that holy book is, so you can get the best understanding, because it's different interpretations within your holy book, right? So you try to find the best interpretations to suit yourself in going forward in your life. Also, I would assume, and I could be wrong, you also know when you say do your research that your holy book have historical context. There are things that's going on, right? So you would do when you say do your research, you also referring to the historical context of your holy book as well. When you say we should do our research, okay, so
yeah, you have to read other books.
Yes. So I thought you were just reading that one book. Yeah. So
well, I mean, history is going on around the world. And if you know what the Bible is saying, but you also at that same period in time, other things were happening, then you get to know who is doing what, where, and if it applies to your people, because our people, like you say, we're scattered. So a lot of things have happened. There's a really good channel. There's a Teo Ministry. He go into a lot of the historical. He goes into a lot of genetics, and I don't do all the genealogy because I'm not perplexed on who I am. I've always known this. I just didn't get the whole clue. I've always known that this just didn't make sense, that how I lived and how I felt and the spiritual things I experienced didn't mean that I had to wait on someone else, and that, we're all going to heaven. But meanwhile, the scriptures are saying he's talking to the children of Israel and the lost tribes and all these things. So I always knew there was something that didn't make sense. I took a while before I got to realizing that it does require some work. You are going to have to open a few books, because it was really effort filled, that it was taken a lot of effort to hide this information from us. It's not a random thing. There's a conspiracy in that people conspired against us so that we would not know.
Hey, Shanique, can I ask you something real quick? Earlier I showed something like where they was showing like the genealogy of the brothers from like the areas in like the DMV area where they used to be in the Chesapeake area, where the first free black people, or where the black citizens in the 1700s, most of them stayed from like the quote unquote colonies, you know what I'm saying? Like one of them, they said his genealogy was like, it was like thousands, like it was like 10,000 years old or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Do you believe that?
I do. I mean, this is the thing. A lot of it, is a little convoluted, but if we are his chosen people, then our people go back, have been there since the beginning. So it would be a whole nother story if we really go into a whole bunch of it. But I believe that it's very old. I believe we are the people. Every time they go into looking into genetics and they find that, they go to the cradle and they go to Africa and find that the first woman and all people. Yeah, well, that means something.
But I mean, don't you? Okay, my bad. Go ahead, finish. My bad.
No, I don't want to interrupt you, Forecast. Bad.
Well, no, I was just one more question. So his genealogy, do you think it it goes back further than the Bible and because it says I don't know how far you saying it goes. Some people be it's 6,000 years old. Some people be it go back further, but his thing, it says tens of thousands of years old. Even if we talking about that kind of predates the Israel society, you know what I'm saying?
The story of it. Well,
yeah.
I mean, in addition to being a nomadic people, we also are an traditionally oral people. So as far as whether it was written down, but we passed things down. So before anything even had to be written down, I guarantee you we knew who we were. But when they talk about when they start talking about the first people who recognized or understood and Moses, he says, oh, how will I tell them who you are? So at some point we forgot that we were his people. So, I mean, there's a lot more to the story. And I could study way more, to be honest with you. So I know that I'm scratching the surface with what I know. But I implore everyone, go give it honestly. Look into this book, not from the perspective of, oh, I want to get religious, but, oh, I want to investigate and find out what's down this rabbit hole of this book and whether it is about Black people. Because believe you me, there have been Gentiles, meaning that there have been Black people who are Gentiles, not because they're by blood, they're not Israel, but because they choose not to live by what they are. That's it. So there's lots of people who can choose to say, okay, I recognize we're the people, but I don't want to live that way. Okay.
So
Most High he don't force anybody to do anything.
Go ahead, Bwana. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have one last question for you, Shane.
Mm-hmm.
One last one. So I was watching this thing on YouTube. I don't know if you know about this channel called like Sanetta, I think, Sanetta Studios, right? And it was this gentleman on he was like under the religion of Hebrew Israelites, right? His name is Captain Tizar, something like that, right? And he was saying that like he hate Africans. I mean, do you like does your group like hate Africans, or is that it just exclusive to that individual?
You know, it's funny. That I imagine there's a few individuals who are Hebrew or who are Israelites, who have contempt for Africans and look at Hamites as a hate-filled people. But my question will be this, because Esau, he garners a lot of hate with a lot of camps as well, but the Most High said, don't hate Esau. So if he's telling you not to hate one who has oppressed us most intensely, he said, don't hate him because he's your brother. So like, this is about people having their own stuff and they bring it to what they recognize and understand. So they got the clue, I'm the people, and then they run with it. But didn't Christ get crucified by the hands of the Romans, but by the word of Israelites? So clearly, again, the Father's not making anyone do anything. It's going to play out the way it plays out. And you're going to have a lot of people who really feel like, they hate Hamites. But last I checked, these are the same groups who are letting every other nation that's non-Hamite join into their camps because they say that they're the people. And it's funny because you've got a whole continent of Africa where we were and fled all throughout, and you want to find the lost tribes everywhere else that look like everything else and say that those are the people. So I think that may be very well one individual, and a lot of times a lot of individuals who have contempt for people, but the Most High is not telling us to even hate Esau. So yeah, it's just him and some other folks. I don't think that's how we're supposed to believe, because when Christ came, he opened the way by way of making us jealous to other nations. Otherwise, he wouldn't have even opened the way for them. But it's because to make us jealous, they have an opportunity by way of faith to serve the Most High. The Most High let people serve all kinds of other gods all before. There was a lot going on before that flood. That's why I tell people start reading the book. If you're curious, read the book. And read some history books.
Yes. So like I say, man, that's the last question. You know, shout out to you and Everett. You know, I love the fact that he's cheering you on in the chatter section. This whole Black love thing is restoring my faith in relationships.
Awesome. Yeah. I love my husband. He's amazing.
Yes, man.
He's
So
amazing.
I respect y'all as a couple, and to me, and as long as y'all RBG, you know, y'all all right with me, despite the fact of whatever religion y'all coming from. So I'll stop there and continue to listen in the chat section.
Yo, shouts out to my brother Bwana. Thanks for coming on, my
Respect,
brother.
Bwana. Respect.
But Wanda, and by the way, that's the thing about Shanique. She you know, I know that she was like, yeah, well, we're black people first, you know what I'm saying? And
There it is.
you know, that's the thing. And that, you know, and I don't get into like, you know, the religion thing, you know what I'm saying? But anything that you use, as long as you're using it to empower yourself and build the stuff that we need to build, you know what I'm saying, is on you. But let me keep going, because I also was mentioning the you know, mulatto thing. So I was showing this, but then okay, yeah. So let me show. All right, so check this out. If it plays.
Or salient points.
All right, listen to this question this brother asked.
Well, and a question too. You mentioned the Brown Fellowship Society. In reading about it, they weren't always looked down upon because they used a light complexion for the advancement of themselves and others. So they were, you know.
Now, first of all, he's lying. This is a black man sitting here lying,
the light-skinned blacks
talking about some
had to look down on the dark-skinned blacks, when in actuality they were using their
something I
light
can't
complexion
fucking
to
do.
gain some sort of advancement, where we can look back and gain and look back on their dark-skinned brothers to also help them advance themselves. Also, and I guess I can wait until we get to our table before I express what was done here.
All right, so I can't pause it, but you know, this brother here is sitting here making excuses already, and he lying. You know, this group never did anything to help black people. They separated themselves from black people, but he's sitting here talking about love is love, and I'm willing to bet that he has ulterior motives. Like, you know, Shanique was just saying, like, you know, y'all can say that with, you know what I'm saying, the white bitches, you know what I'm saying, and you know, she said even Jesus called the white bitch a white bitch, you know what I'm saying. So I can definitely do the same thing, right? And but y'all give other group, huh? What you say?
I'm trying not to laugh. He did call her a dog, and he reckoned they all understood. She even said, "But the crumbs, the doggies from the crumbs of the table." So no one was unclear as to their position. But it's like I don't know. I think we really are drunk off the idea that we're only better once we start to intermingle, and that's what got us into this problem. He told us not to go intermingling because we would not, because oh, we're so horrible, but because we will be led away from serving him. And that's exactly what's happening. He's sitting here arguing as to how they was helping us. You say he lying, he know he lying. It's ridiculous.
The white dude up here, you know, they lying too. They definitely distinguished themselves. That's why they said the brown society. It was brown before Mexicans was brown. You know what I'm saying? Like, we not black. You know,
right? Let me make it clear that I'm gonna separate myself. But we want the power that comes from you, because everybody wants that energy, and that's what I'm saying to you. It's a spiritual thing. There's a spiritual strength that comes from being black that everybody wants a little piece of. But we still don't want to be you. Right. But they can't be.
Yeah. So all right. So let me play the rest of it. All right. Let me play the rest.
Complexion to gain some sort of advancement, where we can look back and gain and look back on their dark-skinned brothers to also help them advance themselves. Also, and I guess I can wait until we get to our table before I express what was done here. Okay, because I thought
my beautiful white bitch.
Gail mentioned about a female member of her family that was ashamed of the fact that she was very light. And you know, and I mentioned to them that Miss Sumter, Thelma Sumter, I remember next door, she's 99, I think. I went to her house one day, and Miss Sumter had on the mantelpiece a picture of her family. And I teased her, and I saw in the picture, like, one dark-skinned fella. I said, Miss Sumter, you got black folks in your family. Miss Sumter, and after the audible truth,
I seen one black dude.
She said, boy, let me tell you one thing. We were in love. So it was not always to be ashamed that we have to be ashamed, but we were in love. We're in love. And so if nothing else comes out, love will solve it.
Love will solve everything, Shanique.
Was it love when the slave masters were raping us? in the big house? Was that love? Or was that lust? That I don't think it's love. I think we're confusing the two L's, love and lust.
It was rape. That's what it was.
Yeah, savagery. But he want to call it love. Okay.
Yeah. He was like, oh, I see one black dude in the family on the picture in there. Oh, you got black folks in your family. Oh, Lord, now. Have mercy.
Goodness. Sad.
And listen to the answer the dude gave him.
Brown Fellowship Society and Brown identity in general. Certainly, by the collapse of Reconstruction and into the 20th century, Brown identity can curdle into a kind of colorism that is very troubling. But I think the concept of brownness can go two ways. I mean, there are liberating aspects of brownness. I think at its best, Brown identity is about saying it's not, we're not black, but it's we are black and we're also white. And it gets us.
Like, I can say N-word, but you can't say mulatto, right? Some stuff like that.
Yeah.
Get us out of the black-white binary. Also, in the Reconstruction period, this is when brown people begin to fight for the rights of all Americans and all African Americans.
And that's all American. And that's another thing with it. They do have this all Americans and all people, because if you heard it, he did say, that like us poor people, and who cares what color they are? It's because there's an ulterior motive behind all of this. They're not going to kill their mom. Why would they? You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even trust somebody who would.
Yeah.
Right.
Relatives in the hope of getting certain privileges. And there's a crucial break in the Reconstruction period that I detail. I think it's important for us to reckon with both the sort of heroic and more tragic aspects of Brown identity and history in the city.
So listen, it's not like I'm just making this stuff up, right? This is 1790. I wasn't born until 1980s, all right? This is predating me. And I didn't make up this thing where they separated themselves. You know who they be like, the Negro slave owners, who was the harshest one? They was the mulatto people, right? They was the mixed race people. And there is this aspect of colorism in our communities that we're not going to act like it's not real, right? Because, I mean, you got your passport bros from this day. And listen, like, I can see, right? I can see it now, right? A brother left Africa, saw something in the cave somewhere, and was like, damn, I got to go hit that. And then, you know what I'm saying? The end of the world happened, you know what I'm saying?
They still doing it.
They still doing the same.
And now, and there's no group, no place that's not happening. Even within Israel, as I know it, there's a brother I saw, and he said that his white wife has helped heal Hebrew women. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me right now? But this is what people will tell themselves whatever they want because their lust is leading them. My grandma used to say, they ain't looking at your face. That's it.
She said they did what now? My bad.
She said they're not looking at you. My grandma used to say they're not looking at your face. So I think that this is just about people lacking self-control because they hate some things about themselves, and there are women available, and so there you go. But that again, they know, like you said, they separated themselves for a reason. Even they wanted to be in that position that was elevated.
Yeah, and they used to and this Brown Fellowship Society, they used to go to church with the white people, and they could marry in their churches. But then once America became a nation, it became a white nationalist nation, right? Not designed for us, never meant for us, you know what I'm saying? Never designed for us to be their citizens. But then the mulatto people was like, damn, we got excluded too, but they didn't want to be with us regular Negroes, you know what I'm saying? Us regular black folk. And so they like, yo, we want to be established and be over them, but they still would never be accepted quite by the Europeans, but of course it's hate for me to say, well, it takes two black people, it takes like a black couple, I think it's hateful, because I think that would be against you and Everett, you know what I'm saying, Shanique, because they saying I'm hateful because it takes 2 black parents to have a black child. No, like, yo, I think your seed matters too, just as much. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion.
Can you show me a white child that has a parent that isn't white, both parents that aren't white? They have flipped this thing where anytime you say anything that separates your own group as wanting to be that, we can't be happy to be black. We can't have black families. You know what? All of that is bad. But meanwhile, you don't have little Bobby is not white unless he has Jill and Ken as parents. Simple.
Facts. And that's all I'm saying. You need Tyrone and Keisha to be black. You know what I'm saying? Not to use those names, but you know,
exactly though. There you go.
Yeah, and you can't because my question is, can a white woman give birth to a black daughter, or can a white man lay the seed for a black man?
The idea is preposterous. It's preposterous. This is funny because we can see these things are confusing for some people when it comes to human beings. But if you think about flowers, okay, you have a seed for a rose and you pollinate it with some pollination from a petunia. You're going to then get a cross between a rose and a petunia. You're not going to get a rose.
If you mix a pit bull and a chihuahua, you're not going to get a pit bull or a chihuahua. You're going to get a mix. But if you mix a black person with anything in the universe, you're going to get a black person. That's crazy.
This is insane. It's insane.
All right,
you mix a pit bull with a chihuahua, you're going to get an ugly little dog. That's what you're going to get.
Well, some could say the same thing if you mix it, but then then that'll be hateful. So never mind. All right, so Shanique, I want to show a couple more things before I get off here, just because I mentioned it in the thing. Have you ever heard of Equiano?
Oh, I think I have. I'm not. Wait, that sounds familiar.
All right, he was a brother who published his autobiography in the 1700s, talking about the slave trade and his experience. Right, but some people say that they debate about whether it's legit or not. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know enough about the debate about whether it's legit, because I think it goes to like some kind of other kind of topic. A lot of these things come from talking points from other topics. That's how I know what questions to ask people. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of things stem from certain talking points. You know what I'm saying?
Right. There's a whole narrative behind things.
Right. So they try to be like his description of the slave trade may not be real. So they could be like, you know, the slave trade never happened kind of thing. You know?
Yeah. Some people really believe that.
Right. So I wanted to play this video and you know, about him, because like I don't know enough about it to be like, so if anybody has something to say about that one too. So but he would describe his journey during the slave trade, you know, in the autobiography.
Iseke is a town in Ihiala local government area of Anambra State. The people here, especially in Amudo, are predominantly into basket making, which they produce in large quantities. Merchants who come in from the north purchase and use them for various purposes.
Not steady price, but now this present now we are selling 300 now.
Ikpeano, a royal son who was said to have been sold into slavery in the 18th century, alongside his sister. Though an account claims his ancestry is linked to Benin, the traditional ruler of Iseke says Anambra State and Iseke is his real and original home.
The actual name of the man was Olauda Ekwano. Olauda in Iseke means a sonorous gong. Ekwano is the family name. He was able as a boy to capture most of the events that took place during his captivity. And when he bought his freedom and became a free man, he got married to a British woman.
They say he got married. Once he bought his freedom, he got married to a British woman. Now, this brother, went around trying to convince Europeans, and it sounds familiar. We still do the same thing, trying to convince Europeans that Black people are humans. We are citizens, right? I am a man, right? He had the 1700s I am a man shirt on, and we just got the 2023 version that just got our faces on it, right? You know what I'm saying?
Sad, but yeah.
Yeah, but he, one of the first thing he did once he got out of slavery. And listen, there's this mindset, there's a trauma that comes with this thing. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing I would disagree, though, Shanique, about this, because there's a trauma and a mindset that comes out of it. Like, it's hindsight is 2020, and I know the mindset, I can't imagine what it's like. I'm like, yo, so you ask me right now, I'm like, yo, you got to kill me, but. A brother who was saw his wife get raped, his children get raped, and the dude rape him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of develop a thing where you well, I better lighten myself up. The self-hatred start developing, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of brothers who came out of that stuff did try to find white bitches, you know what I'm saying?
A spirit of fear and a spirit of anxiety comes over people. And then it's like, I'll be anything but what is subjugated. I'll be anything but this lowly thing that they've pretty much reduced me to. But the sad part is that's what's promoted as what was existing. But there were a lot who did not take that mindset. And if you believe that you wouldn't trust in me, I'm sure you wouldn't. Like, there's a lot of people like, I don't know. They know what they would and wouldn't do. And if it comes into your mind that you would fight, believe you me, you'd fight, because we was jumping off of ships. We was saying, forget it, we'll die first. There was a lot of things that was happening. There was revolts, but they're never going to tell that as the story, as the regular thing.
Yeah, facts. All right, and yeah, and I see you, Raw. I see you going there, Raw. So let me hurry up, because I don't want it to be I don't want to drag Shanique on too long, because I definitely enjoying this though,
Abolitionist movement. Olaudah, who rose to become a writer and an ardent supporter of the abolitionist movement, speaks volume of how much the Iseke people appreciate him despite claims to change the course of history.
Even his name, Olude Kwano, was not even reflected. He was given various names. One, Michael, later, Jacob, and in Sweden.
Oliver and Callistus are members of Equiano family, to which Olaudah Equiano is believed to have been born. They lead the way to the ancestral abode of Olaudah Equiano's father, who, according to them, became miserable after his son and daughter were sold into slavery, a taboo to the royal family. The homestead of one of Olaudah's sisters still stands, and that is where Olaudah Equiano's children visited and confirmed by their father's ancestry is Iseke. More antique.
Now, this brother described when he was on slave ships, he was like, yo, I got kidnapped, and then, they put us on ships, and he was like, yo, when I seen a multitude of Black people, and then it was so crazy that I fainted or something like that, right? And I think a lot of people discredit what he was saying because he was talking about the slave trade or whatever. But, I don't know. But it says he has, relatives in this, in Africa and all of this stuff. So, that's just an interesting thing. I know nobody's here that's going to dispute that right now. You want to say something, Shanique? Because it got something else that is yo, it's kind of, I know it's kind of up your alley, and I'll skip the last thing, so I'll make this the last, because I was
No, I'm inclined to believe that story only because I really feel like we always talk about, but people, the first thing when people bring up is, Black people, Africans sold us into slavery. I think a lot of things were going on. There were other people who were slaves. There were things going on. And as far as tribal slavery, all of that before. So if you see all these people on this ship and they're going somewhere other than where you normally send people, it would definitely make you fear struck, especially if you have rules and you think, he's royalty. He wasn't supposed to be a slave, at least in his mind.
Yeah. And Raw funny. Yo, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, y'all see Buwana in the chat. You should have stayed on. Buwana said he don't think he ever existed. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know enough about the argument. You know what I'm saying? I do know that it is an argument and I've heard it before, but I haven't studied it enough to be able to be on one side or the other. But I do know that there is something. But it's here. It says it has relatives here. It says family members. What this says, I don't know. Pro Black Perspective said. I'm sure he wrote it.
You know what I find funny? I think it's funny that the doubt exists that this man existed, but they have till this day people doubt the Willie Lynch letter ever being real. But the fact is, you can't deny that the effect is real, and so you can't deny that people were actually of all groups that happened to be Black on those slave ships, and we were various different tribes. Not everybody was Israel that was a slave, but we all came here. If you look like one, if you look like you were Black. So it's creative for people to feel like, oh, this doesn't apply, that doesn't apply, but we see the effects of it. Because you have some people who tell you they were never, my people aren't slaves, we were never slaves. Okay. Doesn't mean that slavery didn't happen. Doesn't mean that a lot of your people may have been slaves. So yeah. But I'm gonna let you finish your show, and I'm waiting on my husband to get home. I want to serve him a plate. So I'm gonna be in the chat.
All right.
Thank you.
Shanique. I appreciate you coming on, Shanique.
Okay.
Yeah. So and Ross like, yeah, they beat that name into him like Toby, and yeah, Gustavo Vasa or something like that. He went by another name too, but yeah, he often, or the writings that is credit to him is often, try to plead to Europeans. And I do see that same kind of trend with Black people though. But, like that's why I'm showing this, what I'm saying? I'm interested to hear what y'all got to say about whether this brother was real or not. And it's interesting, Shanique got off because I wanted her to see this is because we was like speaking of spooked out. I'll go off on some spooked out stuff. Because I was also going to mention one last thing, though, and I'm going to skip it, though, so I'll show you now. Because I also mentioned the Naturalization Act of 1790, how citizenship became an issue since we was talking about that. But we'll save it for another time for the Naturalization Act of 1790. And we'll end it on some spooked out stuff, y'all. So let's do this. And of course, during this time, right, that they made their constitution, they decided, Philadelphia sucks. We're going to go to Washington, D.C. to make our capital. All right. And of course, Benjamin Banneker is credited with having designed it. Now, they say a white dude came up with design. He got fired or he quit or something. And Benjamin Banneker recreated the design within 2 days and then blah, blah, blah. But, let's be real here. If I'm looking at Black creativity compared to their creativity and who would have the ideas and who's not, I'm likely to say that Benjamin Banneker probably was the smartest person in the room and came up with the ideas. But that's just me saying this. But who designed Washington, D.C.? Speaking of some spooked out stuff. So let's go out on some spooked out stuff.
House was laid in 1792, and ever since then, that cornerstone has never been seen again, despite numerous attempts to locate it. Some believe it's either still in its original location or was damaged during renovations, but others believe the Freemasons stole it. That theory that the Freemasons stole the cornerstone is strongly connected to the widespread belief that the master design for Washington, D.C.
I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I've listened to parts of it. And I've heard arguments of saying like certain things that he said. I'm talking about Equiano, like, oh, this thing never happened. You know what I'm saying? This particular event that he talked about couldn't possibly be true. I've heard people say stuff like this. But like I said, I've never got deep into the Equiano thing. But I know that Equiano is a thing that when people talk about the slave trade, they be like, yeah, the story of Equiano, he talks about the slave trade. And then they be like, oh, well, well, that's not true because Equiano is fake because of such and such. You know what I'm saying? I know that that's kind of the origins of where it is. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, you know. But I've heard parts of his book, and some of it, I mean, you know, he has, I mean, I don't see why, because like he says a lot of stuff that Black people say, but I didn't I didn't go through the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? You can listen to it on YouTube right now though. But let me play the spooked out thing.
Strongly connected to the widespread belief that the master design for Washington, D.C. was based on Masonic symbolism.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm McKinley.
Oh, good. I'm Macoma.
A symbologist.
Take a look at this. This is a layout of Washington, D.C. Here, you can really see how the streets run. They run on angles, into circles, into squares. This city has been deliberately laid out on Masonic symbolism before the first spade of dirt was turned. As is the square is a symbol of perfection in masonry. Washington, D.C. was originally a perfect square to really make things as powerful.
Yeah, I'm not, because I don't want to get into the religion thing. The one question I was going to ask was like, yo, how do you think that we got like this version that we got? Like, yo, because the sister was talking about, you know, how it kind of, but I didn't want to go on that, you know what I'm saying? But, yo, she was talking about Washington, D.C. and the symbolism. She was saying, yeah, it's some spooked out thing and the Freemason thing and all of that stuff. I can tell you this, right? When they designed the city, they wanted something that's complicated where the British just couldn't run up or enemies just couldn't run up on it, right? If they just ran up on there. So, and I do know that this brother designed it, and I will tell you this, you know what I'm saying? So,
Really see how the streets run. They run on angles, into circles, into squares. This city has been deliberately laid out on Masonic symbolism before the first spade of dirt was turned. As is the square is a symbol of perfection in masonry. Washington, D.C. was originally a perfect square to really make things as powerful as you possibly can.
Now, would that perfect square be like a cornerstone?
The cornerstone of the most powerful country in the world.
Back to the cornerstones.
Back to the cornerstone.
So, Diane, is there any Masonic messaging or symbols in Washington, D.C. the way?
All right, now here go a white lady. So as you know, it's official, y'all. So we can all shut up and let this white lady speak, this white bitch, right? Because they've been on point since we seen them in the cave. Am I right? They still don't use washcloths, by the way. But the Moors have failed and they've done a terrible job. But other than that, it's just a white bitch speaking. She gonna tell you about the spooked out stuff about Washington, D.C.
It's laid out.
No. None? No.
Symbols expert. The sister is a symbologist, but she's a symbols expert. I think symbologist is a more prestige title though, so she's a lesser version of the sister.
I have a hard time believing they would go ahead and lay out a city on a blank slate and not include something.
I'm really sorry, but no, this is a city that is laid out on a topographical grid according to topography, according to the heights and the depths, the valleys, the mountains, the grids. It was very easy to get around in. Wide boulevards when you needed it, narrow streets when you didn't need it, where it was residential, and everything revolved around the government, because the government was the center of everything.
So all this stuff, all these circles, these symbols, these right angles, is all bunk.
Means
I would say
nothing.
yes. I don't think it's Masonic. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I don't think it's satanic. I don't think it's anything other than an attempt to create a city which was symbolically, yes, the center of the new democracy.
The symbolic. So and at the end, yes, it was, but they trying to be like she's spooked out. She's lying in the chat room, or in the comments. But listen, if I built the city, I would tell you what, I want to make it complicated for you to try to invade me and to get to my capital. So whoever designs that, you know what I'm saying, I would definitely say that. Right. But the symbols expert says no, and the symbologist, the sister, says yes. Yeah, that's what she says. She says this is a white bitch speaking, right? They've been having the dominant word since we've seen them in the cave doing whatever the hell they was doing. Throwing their babies out with, well, it wasn't no bathwater. Well, eating their babies, you know what I'm saying? They've been having a dominant word since we've seen them in there. And you know they can give birth to like black children. So the symbols expert, let's see what she has to say.
Panic? I don't think it's anything other than an attempt to create a city which was symbolically, yes, the center of the new democracy, the center of justice.
So, Diane, what do you think happened to the cornerstone of the White House? Do you think it's missing? Do you think the Masons had something to do with it? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think it's probably either under a lot of rubble or it was
Right.
damaged during one of the renovations. But
Well, Wanda tripping. Those white girls say you tripping. It's probably just, you know, got damaged. It's under some rubble or something. Like, what are you talking about? You know.
it was damaged during one of the renovations. But was it a Masons conspiracy? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so you heard Real Black Gentleman. He said the white girl is right. No, I'm joking, my brother. But yeah, I mean, I do think I think that was a strategic, you know what I'm saying, method to it, because they didn't want to get invaded, right? They was worried about somebody running up on their front lawn. Why? Because, you know, they're psychopath killers who, that's what you do. When you psychopath kill people, you worry about the Indians, the Negro insurrections. You worried about, you know what I'm saying, the British coming back. You worried about, you know what I'm saying, everything. You know what I'm saying? Of course, you're going to design something on some paranoid stuff, right? And let's be real. We got Benjamin Banneker here who did so many great things. He was an astronomer, predicting weather, making almanacs, you know what I'm saying, making clocks. You know, like, let's be real. Like, we're nice at things like this, creativity, you know what I'm saying? And it probably was designed in a complicated manner on purpose. And like now we're here now, but you know, back then it was a whole different thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's the question, because we was talking about that with Prince Hall, right? Because they be like, oh, he was a Freemason, but he also did a lot of things for the Black community that we don't do today. So does a Freemason make you, like, what is a Freemason, first of all? Because I don't know. But does that make you necessarily evil? Or, you know what I'm saying, if you use it to do things, good things for Black people, is that good? Or do you never do it? Or if I make an organization, right, and we get different chapters, like say I'm doing something trying to better the water, and then I get a chapter in like Flint, Michigan, or I get a chapter somewhere in Florida, or I get a chapter somewhere in Alabama. Is that now a Freemason thing because I have like different chapters and, you know what I'm saying, we have our own thing to like kind of build? Does that now make it a demonic thing, right? Since we being spooked out. So all of this ties in, you know what I'm saying? So it ties in with, I don't know, man. I think the Second Great Awakening, let me play this for my brother Bwana, because my brother Bwana going in Washington, D.C., based off Ancient Kemet by Benjamin Banneker, according to this brother and to some of y'all.
Of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. is based on the layout of ancient Kemet, like right here in present-day Egypt. You see the obelisks in the background and the reflection pool on the right. This is all based on Egypt. You'll see this in downtown Washington, D.C., but thousands of years ago, it was here in Africa. Did you know that the design of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. is based on the layout of ancient Kemet, like right here in present-day Egypt? You see the obelisks in the background and the reflection pool on the right. This is all based on Egypt. You'll see this in downtown Washington, D.C., but thousands of years ago, it was here in Africa. Did you know that the design of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. is based on the layout of ancient Kemet, like right here in present-day Egypt? You see the obelisks in the background and the reflection pool on the right. This is all based on Egypt. You'll see this in downtown Washington, D.C.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, you heard Bwana. So I don't know how you feel about that, Real Black Gentleman. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that's like, I mean, I guess we got to define what Freemason stuff is. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. I don't know how y'all feel about that. But shouts out to Benjamin Banneker, you know, because we are some smart people. You know what I'm saying? we are some resilient people. We didn't just take whatever it was, you know what I'm saying? Now listen, petitioning for our freedom has not worked for like, 200 some years, right? Using well, she did say no symbols, right? She was the symbols expert, and the symbologist said it was a symbol. All right, so yeah, Real Black Gentleman says it's built off Kemet for sure. And it's a wonder they ain't built it off some damn Greek stuff, right? But we just gonna ignore where the Greek people went to too, right? But yeah, affirmed by Aswa Kwesi. He studied under Dr. Ben. Damn, like we can look at just examples from like now, like hip hop, what I'm saying, movies, slang, anything that you do, like they made us speak their language, then we made it our own thing, and now they take that kind of language and make it popular. The difference is they commoditize it, right? So they make money off of it, right? We enjoy it and welcome everybody into the club. Like everybody can be black, everybody can capitalize, everybody can monetize, everybody can tell our story, everybody can come to the cookout, but every other group is protecting you from their kind of culture, right? They're going to take your stuff and profit off of it and use it, right? But then they're going to sit there and tell you nobody ever even thought of had a thought in their mind until a Greek dude had a thought one day, right? Nobody looked into the sky. Nobody made a fire, right? Nobody ate food, right? Nobody did anything until a Greek showed up, right? That's what they're going to tell us. But we still let them capitalize on everything that we do all the time. We still accept everything. And it's okay for us to draw the line and determine everything that we determine, right? And whatever we got to do to create what we got to do, we got people in here that's like-minded. And the thing about Shanique that I respect, like even if we have differences, she understands that it's black people first, you know what I'm saying? Like we know that we need to help black people around the world, you know what I'm saying? Like, and we can put our differences aside to, take care of our children, you know what I'm saying? To build the things we need to build for our children. And we have no excuses because they did this in 1790, right? 1787, right? And, I don't know. Yeah, I know, man. That straight had to work that day. Like I keep having to work on the weekends. Like I thought I was going to be able to, get up to DC, but I keep having to work on the weekends, bro. Like, but I'm about to fix all of that anyway. But man, I appreciate all of y'all for coming on here. It's definitely time for me to end because if y'all look at this, y'all think I'm gonna be spooked out right now, and it's 11:11, all right? And that's definitely the perfect time for me to get up off of here. Yeah, I know, man. Yo, but it is what it is, Bwana. And Bwana, yeah, we'll have that conversation next time. So I'll try to make sure I know that you're here with the citizenship thing. You know what I'm saying? You said you watched the slaughterhouse cases. But as for Bwana comment, it shows he made that as 11:11. So I'm going to be spooked out myself here. And I'm going to let you know that 11:11 means I'm on the right track. And that means it's time for me to get up out of here. I want to thank everybody who support, the Black History thing. In the classes, or the lessons that I try to do. I encourage everybody to create their own lessons or whatever you're good at. I don't care what it is, but we need to teach our youth whatever it is that we need to teach them, but with the right mindset. That's the issue. Like we can be great scientists, but if we give our discoveries away, or we can discover new material, but we don't got no way to process it, and then we go around, hey, Europeans, look what we found. What do you think is going to happen? If you don't have no way to develop ways to protect yourself, if you don't develop ways to, feed yourself, you're going to continue to have food deserts. So all of this stuff is important, man. Thank y'all, man. Shouts out to my brother. Shouts out to my brother Bwana. Shouts out to my brother Black Magus. Scared Slumber Africans. Yeah, man. I know, man. We need to find a way to, upend this, but I want to thank y'all, man. And Bwana, and shouts out to Shanique coming on here, she done ran Bwana off the stage, you know what I'm saying? Shouts out to Oni, shouts out to Raw, you know what I'm saying? They don't understand the answer, Raw, you know what I'm saying? That's the problem. You know what I'm saying? We love everybody. We think everybody is our friends, but nobody loves us, and we think we love everybody. But how can we when we don't love ourselves? But man, shouts out to Shanique for coming on here. Shouts out to Everett. You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to Erica. Shouts out to Bakari. They was here earlier. Shouts out to my brother Koku. Everybody who was in the chat, man. Let me see who else was here. Real Black Gentleman. Shouts out to Real Black Gentleman. So, you know, and shouts out to 1111. So we're going to be spooked out. It means good luck, man. So do what you got to do. And if the only thing you can do is spit, then spit. You know what I'm saying? Everything you do, make it revolutionary. But as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.